the first comedian we had lined up for night one was Ron Funches, who at this point is a huge comedy star. So we get him booked, we get everything finalized. I announce him. We start selling tickets with a big picture of Ron Funches on the poster. Within 24 hours, we get notice that he has to drop off the show because he took a movie role. Wah, wah, wah. He's like, okay, cool. I just made a call. I've got Nikki Glaser. Cool. I redo the poster. I put up Nikki Glaser. We start selling tickets. Within 24 hours, we get another call because her agent got her booked at Comedy Works. And so she had to drop off. So then we went to our third choice. And, so it was just a roller coaster. Bobcat Goldthwait goes over to Dak Draper and gives him the worst people's elbow you could possibly imagine. And I'm just lying there watching this go down. But then I hear Bobcat Goldthwait say, "Are you okay?" to Dak Draper. And I lost it because Dak Draper is like 6'2", 250, just made out of muscle. Like you could have put Bobcat Goldthwait in a cannon and shot him like Hannibal style, point blank, Effie's Big Gay Brunch, which is an all queer wrestling show, and it sells out and it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
And that's what wrestling is now. It's an inclusive party for everyone. Wrestling is for everyone.
Hey, quick question before we get started. Would you like to win a free piece of clothing from Snowman Films and a 30-minute chat about your creative journey with me? I know that I would love to connect with you, and I know that I would have loved to talk with somebody who had experienced a similar path when I was getting started. So let's make it happen. Here's what you need to do. Subscribe to the Conversations with Creators podcast, rate and review, and share it in just 5 easy steps. First, write a review on your preferred podcasting platform and rate it 5 stars for good karma. Then, screenshot your review and share it on social media, tagging Snowman Films. Each month, I'll select one random winner to receive a free piece of clothing from our store and a 30-minute virtual coaching call with me. Again, subscribe, write a review, rate the show, screenshot that review, share it on social media tagging Snowman Films, and get entered into a drawing for that one-on-one virtual session with me and some free swag. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave me a review. I really appreciate you, and I'm excited to see you in our one-on-one virtual call soon. Now, let's dive into today's episode. So the big question is this: how are creators like us, who aren't built for the 9-to-5, for the people who put their passion before them being comfortable, how do we turn that passion into a living that pays the bills and a life that we love? That is the question. This podcast will give you the answers. My name is Noah Mittman, and welcome to Conversations with Creators.
I'm just going to jump right into it because, why the fuck not?
Sure. I mean, hey, who's gonna stop you?
Nobody. Many people should. Nobody will.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, right.
Like, who's allowing this?
Nobody. That's why we're here. I just said, let's go. And nobody said, don't do that. So here we are.
I'm not sure if that's encouraging or it's just like, let's watch this idiot Wile E. Coyote off of this clip this time.
I mean, both. Bobby. We'll see what the downloads say.
Good call.
Yeah. So, welcome back to Conversations with Creators. My name is Noah Mittman. I am your dedicated host, and my guest today is Nick Gossert, a comedian, a referee, a promoter, a producer. You do a whole lot of stuff on Lucha Libre and Laughs.
Well,
hi, Nick.
It really was like looking at my resume where it's like the old stuff first and it builds up to the new stuff. Yeah. Thanks for having me. As stated, I am Nick Gossert and I am here and we're going to talk about things.
Things will be talked about. This is the fact. So, all right. So going, in fact, not even starting old stuff. Let's go new stuff first because you are 10 years, into Lucha Libre and Laughs.
Yeah, coming up this weekend is our 10-year anniversary. So
shit.
To go big. I went with doing a 2-night super show. So far, it's going swimmingly. So we should have a nice big crowd watching a crazy as heck show.
Heck yeah.
Everything should work out.
So for anybody that doesn't know, for any of the millions of people that don't know, I'm kidding, what Lucha Libre and Laughs is, can you give us give us 10 years of history. No, give us a little backstory on what this thing is.
Well, Lucha Libre and Laughs is a variety show mixing stand-up comedy and pro wrestling, which sounds odd until you experience it. It really is the peanut butter and jelly of entertainment. It's the perfect match energy-wise and fun-wise. So we bring together amazing pro wrestling matches. And then between them, we have great stand-up comedians doing their sets. And throughout the course of the night, we have very funny people doing comedy commentary live for the audience for the pro wrestling. And we've been doing that since 2013. And here we are with me now aging terribly because of it.
You do have some gray in the beard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at this. I am only 22 years old, and this is what it wears you down like nothing.
You don't look a day over 18. Just legal.
I've seen your search history, so.
How did you get... So this is your baby, right? This is your brainchild?
Correct. Yeah, this was my terrible idea. So I'm the only one that can be blamed for this. I guess Denver as a whole can be blamed for allowing me to do this with increasing success for a decade. There's a lot of blame to go around.
So how did you, what originally, in your mind, you put together wrestling and comedy goes together? How did that connection happen?
Well, I did do comedy for a long time. And as a lifelong wrestling fan, I mean, you can't help but, despite the storytelling, the action, the excitement, the mythology, the pathos, the ups, the downs, there is a serious absurdity when you strip pro wrestling down to its basics, where you can look at the, battle of gods and monsters in front of thousands of people, but you can also boil it down to a couple of friends pretending to fight in their underwear. So there is a baseline absurdity to wrestling, no matter how seriously you take it.
I really love it like both of those are true.
Yeah, exactly. It is the highest form of storytelling as far as an American art form is concerned. As far as I'm concerned, you are presenting a grandiose superhero soap opera on the stage, live, no rehearsals, no second takes, and it's magical, but it's also ridiculous. And, that's true for many things that we love as a culture and as people. And I want to say this was about 11 years ago. My friends Sam and Nathan Lund, Sam Talent, who will be doing commentary on the show.
They're regulars on it, yeah?
Yeah, they're both a little too successful and busy to be on every show, but they try to make them whenever they can. And they, along with a couple other people, did a festival called Too Much Funstival. And at that time, I'd been quasi-attached to the local wrestling scene. I started refereeing for some lucha shows, and they asked if I could get some wrestling involved in one of the shows. It was at Castleman's, a venue that once upon a time was here in Denver.
I used to shoot videos for Castleman's.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to get paid. Are you ready? I used to get paid, because you know me. I used to get paid to breakdance in a shiny silver suit at Castleman's, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever been paid to do. But we had fun.
That is a silly goose way to make a buck, but I've heard worse. Yeah, so the final night of the festival was there, and they asked if we could get some wrestling, so we brought in the ring, set it up, had a couple of just wild and crazy lucha matches. Yeah. And then there was a band played, and then there was comedians. I remember it was Andrew Orbital and a pre-fame Ron Funches, and it was a fun time. But the combination, it just the in cooking terms, the types of spicing seemed there just needed some adjustment, and the idea just stuck in the back of my brain for quite some time.
The best ideas always do. It's always you get it, and then you're still like 2 or 3 years later, this is still there. There's something to this.
Yeah, it's you're just kind of waiting for either that final idea adjustment, or just the courage to, start shooting and fix it in post, if you will. Yeah. And that's kind of what this was. It kind of simmered in my brain for a number of months. And then I remember a bunch of us were sitting around, we were watching WrestleMania in 2013, and I told everybody in the room, hey, I've got this idea. And everybody's response was, can I be on this show? So I knew that was, I knew that we had something. And
For what, like you sold the room originally, which is all you need to sell, because then you can sell the venue.
exactly. Which sometimes is not an easy thing, particularly.
No, it's maybe the hardest thing.
Yeah, because especially in a town like Denver, where most of the venues that are bigger than a broom closet are controlled by evil booking corporations that don't want anything to do with local entertainment.
/ the mafia, right?
It might as well be. I mean, it's like you have the big companies that control the bigger venues, control the bookings, and if you go to them and say, "Hey, I've got an idea. I think it'll make everybody some money," and they don't they're making cash hand over fist with the contract that they have, so they don't care about local art. Fortunately, I bubble butted my way into a venue that does, which is the Oriental.
Listen, if you can't get in, just twerk your way in.
Exactly. But I fortunately, one of the first places I looked at was the Oriental Theater. And they liked the idea. I don't think they understood the idea, but I don't think anybody understood the idea, even me. So
I don't even fully listen. I got it. And this is where I'm a terrible person. Like, I've known about this for 10 years and I still have yet to get there. And I want to so bad. I'm going to pitch it for my next date night with the wife. Be like, yo, we're going to go do some ridiculous shit and it's going to be great.
And what's strange is you would not believe how many times, because these big wrestling stars come and they're used to a wrestling audience. But it's like couples on date nights, or like a bunch of women like dressed up nice, having a girls' night out and going to Lucha Libre and Laughs.
Like, there's no single 30-year-olds here. What are we doing?
Yeah, it's something where they come to just party and have fun, because people at first will be like, "Oh, wrestling," but then you can't really sell 500 tickets with just wrestling in this town. It has to be the party show. It has to be nightlife. And we were fortunate enough to kind of transcend to being nightlife. So it's kind of the weird party freak show where you come and get drunk and yell at people that are much bigger than you.
Yeah, that's the one place you can. What's the like spread on the types of people? Like, what's your audience range from?
Well, I mean, it's like by and large, it is kind of the young hip audience. You'll get about 20 to 30% that are the wrestling fans, and everybody else is just either newcomers because they heard about what a wild or something is, or it's people who or just they've been there. They know it's a crazy way to spend a Friday night.
It's the best.
Or as my friend Effie, who's a famous pro wrestler, he'll be there this weekend, said it's like 25% wrestling fans and just 75% hot young people. And
if that doesn't describe Denver, I don't know what does.
Yeah, and I'm as confused as anyone by how that happened. Because
listen, you got the hot young people audience. You're winning.
Exactly.
Who are like the biggest names that have blown up that have been on the show?
Well, I mean, actually, the Nikki Glaser story is mildly.
Yeah, tell me. I want all the Nikki Glaser.
And it is an insight into how booking comedy can be.
Yeah.
For our 5-year anniversary, we were doing our first attempt at a weekend show, doing 2 nights. It had a lot of obstacles. And the biggest one is the first comedian we had lined up for night 1 was Ron Funches, who at this point is a huge comedy star. So we get him booked, we get everything finalized. I announce him. We start selling tickets with a big picture of Ron Funches on the poster. Within 24 hours, we get notice that he has to drop off the show because he took a movie role. So the co-producer with this one, he's like, "Okay, cool. I just made a call. I've got Nikki Glaser. Cool. I redo the poster. I put up Nikki Glaser. We start selling tickets. Within 24 hours, we get another call because her agent got her booked at Comedy Works.
Yeah.
Comedy Works, like a lot of bigger comedy clubs do in many cities, they have a non-compete clause on the contracts going either way, both before and after, which, is understandable, but somehow her manager or agent didn't remember that or looked at the calendar wrong, and so she had to drop off. So then we went to our third choice, and, so it was just a roller coaster of start and stops with a huge star to a big star to decent stars.
And you're just not sleeping and losing your mind and like
just getting
celebrating and then depressed and then celebrating and then depressed.
Yeah, so it was just like, all right, we have this huge star. We don't. Refund request. I get it. So yeah, so that's
How well did that show end up selling at the end of it?
not well, because it was a first attempt at doing 2 nights. We had Todd Glass on night 1 as the comedian, Brooks
That's
Wheelan.
solid.
Yeah, and Brooks Wheelan from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. So okay, you've had some names on it.
Yeah, for comedy, I usually don't book big names because it doesn't make a lot of sense to fly in and pay a big star a lot of money for what essentially is like a 10-minute spot. Because we're not,
Yeah, that's fair.
it's not like a real comedy show where the headliner is going to do 30 or plus. It's, 10 minutes and then they join the commentary team to do the commentary spot. So a lot of the bigger names, like outside of that weekend, which was a co-promo with another company, it was awkward. Anything I always find that anything where I'm not 100% both hands on the wheel, nobody else trying to help drive, that's the way it always works best for me. The only time it really worked out it was at a festival in Omaha. And we get there, and like many comedy festivals, people had to leave early, or was this or was that, and things didn't work out.
Yeah.
But in the end, we ended up with a heck of a lineup. We had Timmy Williams from Whitest Kids You Know as a feature on the show.
Oh my God, I love them.
Yeah, and the headline
Early YouTube.
Yeah, and he's a hilarious stand-up
Yeah,
and he was on there. And we ended up, by pure accident, having Bobcat Goldthwait as our headliner, which was absolutely wild in every sense of the word. I mean, huge fan going back to being a kid watching Police Academy all the way up through loving the movies he directs from.
He's a heavyweight.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And he led to one of the hardest times I've ever had keeping a straight face, because we decided to do this goofy gimmick finish on the match. It was Eugene, a former WWE guy, versus this guy who's now Dak Draper in NWA. And the finish was, I was refereeing, and they come in, and I get hit, and then I get hit again, and I get knocked out, and I'm just lying there dead. Sam turns around. Eugene gives him a stunner, covers him, but there's no referee. So Bobcat dives in, and Bobcat does the counts at 1, 2, and he holds up Eugene's arm and is celebrating. But then I hear Eugene go drop an elbow on him. So Bobcat Goldthwait goes over to Dak Draper and gives him the worst people's elbow you could possibly imagine. And I'm just lying there watching this go down. But then I hear Bobcat Goldthwait say, "Are you okay?" to Dak Draper. And I lost it, because Dak Draper is like 6'2", 250, just made out of muscle. Like, you could have put Bobcat Goldthwait in a cannon and shot him like Hannibal style.
How much does Bobcat Goldthwait weigh comparatively?
I mean, at this point, he's like a 60-year-old comic who looks like he weighs like 160 pounds.
He goes, "Are you okay?"
So yeah, it's just like, he was so concerned. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm supposed to be unconscious, barely, so I'm corpsing like nobody's business. I had to like turn into the middle of the ring and cover it up. And
you're
I'm
nice too, right?
Weary-eyed, because I'm like my eyes are bugging. I probably look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall when he was sucked out into the vacuum of Mars, just eyes bugging out, looking like a monster. And I'm just curled up in a ball, because I'm trying not to let everybody see that I'm laughing hysterically over Bobcat Goldthwait asking if he hurt a giant wrestler.
The answer should have been like, "Yeah, it's a little bruised."
So that was probably like the biggest night of like comedy stars that we've had on the show.
That's amazing. Oh my God. And I mean, it makes sense that with that stacked lineup, you're bent over, you're both on the ground and in the fetal position, laughing, trying not to show it.
Yeah, it was one of the hardest experiences of my life, as far like, I'm surprised I didn't just like loudly fart or something, like trying to hold that in.
I'm sure that's happened though.
Oh, how could it not?
So you refereeing these shows, I'm sure, is an absolutely insane position. How does the comedy work into your refereeing, and like, is there any effect on how the matches get refereed, or is the refereeing more important, or is the comedy more important for you?
Well, like I haven't, because I mean, I stopped refereeing like a number of years ago, just because it was like the show became too big.
Okay.
The show became too big for me to be able to just lose myself and enjoy refereeing. Because like for a long time, I was refereeing other shows, sometimes being the only referee on a show and like reffing like 7 straight matches and nearly dying of dehydration and then getting yelled at by a former WWE star. But that's a different story. And but it's something where the show just started becoming too big because I'd have, it used to be like, oh, it was all locals. Then it was locals with one guy, one star I flew in, then 2. And now it's like half the show is TV stars. And I can't be in the ring and be handling all of that. That's just too much of a split focus.
Yeah.
But when I was refereeing, it just depends on what the match called for. I mean, it's very much an acting role because sometimes you'd be doing a silly goose comedy match. Like there was this Japanese wrestler, Kikutaro, that I would book a lot. And he would do spots like he runs to attack the wrestler that he's wrestling and the clotheslines catch arms and they link and they do a do-zi-do. And then he goes flying back towards me and he accidentally catches my arm and we do a do-zi-do. And then he goes sailing back that way and gets clotheslined. So, you become the prop that
I was gonna say you're like an athlete at this point.
Oh yeah, no, everything's very physical in wrestling, even being And the best way to put it is the referee, if you put it into like filmmaking or acting terms, I am a prop the referee is a prop in the hand of the wrestlers because you have to meet the requirements of what you're doing because sometimes it's a very serious match and you have to be a very serious person.
Yeah.
Or it's being portrayed as like a legitimate grappling thing. So you have to act like you're refereeing a legitimate competition. And then sometimes
while there's stand-up happening.
Well, the stand-up,
Or the commentating.
With the commentary going. So it just really just depends on what's happening. It's like the wildest game of improv half the time because, like a lot of it is improvised on the fly based on how the crowd's reaction or ideas that are had mid go. So it's trying to figure out the mood of what's happening, follow the action, pick up on cues, make sure people are okay, not laugh at the commentary, all the while, trying to entertain, 600 people who are looking on.
That is wild. That is, yeah. No wonder you. So this man has by the way, I've known you since film school. So many, many years. I mean, more than 10 years for sure. No, about that.
We're both aging terribly. We acknowledge
100%. Although I will say, you're way more in shape than you were in film school. I think because of maybe the refereeing and being in with the physical stuff. You're looking great, dude. You're looking great.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. That was definitely a post-COVID turn for me because I was an athlete. I used to fight, back in the day. And then apparently you can train for just about anything except for bad genetics for your joints. So arthritis runs pretty deep into my family. So my hips started going to crap. And then you just go, well, the hell with everything. You put on some pounds. You don't really care. And then I was doing yoga, just ended up breaking up the scar tissue enough. DDP yoga, I highly recommend it for physical therapy.
Yeah.
But I was still I was living a very unhealthy lifestyle when I was working at the theater. And, because it's like you work in entertainment, it's very easy to go like, cool, well, it's the end of the night. Let's have some drinks at 1 a.m. You know what? Let's stop at that 24-hour diner because I'm going to eat a waffle and huevos rancheros at 3 a.m. Things that are just not ideal for.
It does sound fantastic, though.
Oh, it does, but it's not good for your metabolism. And then you wake up hungover and you just want a breakfast burrito. And kind of during exactly. So during COVID, it was like a really great way to kind of break that cycle.
Yeah. How much? I'm assuming COVID stopped you cold for a bit.
Oh, and like across the board, because I'm a manager at a concert venue. I do, I run live shows.
Oh, jeez.
And in fact, one of the first shows to be canceled, the very first show to be canceled was my show.
No shit.
It was in March 2020. I had I had the place sold out. I sold out 3 days before the show.
Oh my God.
I was just like, cool, this is just, everything's going fine. And like COVID was kind of like looking over everybody's shoulder, but it was just kind of,
No, I remember.
yeah, it was like, we were all kind of like, well, maybe it's this, maybe they'll just go away. Nobody knows. And then
April is when my world went to shit. March was so like, I might get out of this.
yeah. And I get a call from, so I wake up the morning of the show, calls like from the theater, from the city. Pretty much what they said was, you could have 200 people in the theater, not 550. Well, that's a problem when, in order to break even, you have to sell 300 tickets.
Yeah.
So it was actually cheaper, it also, I think, more fair just across the board just to cancel. Because also, how do you pick which 200 get to come see it? Plus, everybody's panicking. It's just a whole thing. So
it's not going to be happy there.
Yeah, so my show was canceled. Fortunately, nobody had gotten to the airport before I was able to get a hold of them. So nobody flying out.
That's good.
Yeah, but it was just like all the money I spent on advertising, gone. All my hotels and flights were turned into credits for the most part. Southwest and Delta, of course, took care of people a lot better than other airlines. But it dug me in a hole pretty deep. So yeah, that was a fun time. And
when did it come back for you?
It was the summer of 2021. Because
that's pretty quick.
Yeah, it was, because
I mean, no, relatively, it's still a fucking year. But...
yeah, and it was under very specific circumstances where we could do shows, but you had to, it would be like you could only have 50 people or 75 people or 100 people, and they would have to stay in their seats and they would have to wear a mask.
Yeah, spread out, masked up, all the stuff.
Yeah, so fortunately, I was able to put together, everybody just wanted to get back to wrestling, even if it was like, hey guys, the money is garbage, but I'm just giving,
it's just, I mean, it's anything, right? Like at that point, like I started, and I'm still, it's funny, I say I started, but even on this Saturday, I'm back to like PA gigs. Cause I didn't know that, like, so like everything disappeared from me, right? Like production company wise gone. And then it was summer of 2022, actually, because I just didn't think anything was happening. And I was like, oh my God, stuff's in production again. Holy shit. But because I'd taken so long on building the Snowman brand and doing like the business stuff, going back to the commercial world or, any higher level stuff, I'd been kind of out of the game for a little bit. So I was like back to PA level for a bit, and I still am occasionally. And it's like, it was kind of a bit a hit on the ego, but it was also like, I'm still like, there's work. This is great. Like, we're doing stuff again.
Yeah. And like for us, it's like, because, we were just barely able to get like a show going.
Yeah.
And at 100 people, I was able to like, okay, I'm going to like call in some favors and get like cool surprises on the shows, which is now my favorite thing to do, period. But yeah, it was, but it's like we had to cancel so many things. I had to cancel so many plans. I also used to run another show through 2019. In the first month of 2020, I ran an all women's promotion called Respect. And, we had to cancel our April show. We had a show scheduled for early April, and that show just never came back. Unfortunately, we did a one-off in like when we were first able to start running shows again, but it was just too difficult to try to relaunch two brands when everything else had just been kicked out from under your knee. Yeah,
maybe new for 2024. Who knows?
It's like at this point, Triple L has gotten too big for me to split. It's kind of like the referee thing where it's like, oh, I can't promote on a show that's too big. Well, now Triple L is even bigger. So just trying to even like split my brain resources between running Triple L and reading a book or playing video games is now like almost impossible.
Listen, you got to have the life balance, man. Yeah. And to quote Ron from Parks and Rec, you got a whole ass one thing, not partial ass multiple things.
Exactly.
I need to listen to that advice myself, but here we are.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's one of those things where it's obviously I'm not sad about it, but yeah, it's become such a big show. It's now internationally known where we're getting we get Japanese talents, like in October, we have this guy, Minoru Suzuki, who from New Japan Pro Wrestling, like, if you imagine, like, if you had like Hulk Hogan on a show, like that's it.
He's the Japanese Hulk Hogan.
He is just a huge star. And then at our last show, we had Maki Ito, the cutest in the world, from Tokyo Joshi Princess Wrestling. So it's very funny to think about how things once upon a time were where I'm like trying to get just enough locals to be on a show that look kind of dumb, to now where I'm, working agreements with TV companies in Japan. So yeah, it becomes a little more time consuming these days.
How does that work with, because I know you film and edit everything. How is it, where are you posting stuff? Is there any live stream at all? Like how does the media side work?
We're not doing live stream, and a big part of that is just Wi-Fi in the theater is very difficult.
Yeah.
I could boost it and make it work. But the other big issue is split camera because we put the ring on the stage, which is
it's more elevated, not in this, not down.
Yeah, which makes it real easy. You have a hard cam from the balcony for the wide shot. You have a medium shot hard cam from the production booth, and you have a handheld on one side, possibly both.
Yeah,
and you can get an amazing amount of coverage. But you would need somebody who's very adept at sports direction to sit there and hit the switches.
Right.
Especially, and then you also need to figure out a way to get the handheld, because when they go and fight into the crowd, they go down into the dance floor and they're brawling through there.
Yeah.
Able to still get the handheld, getting a signal.
Hard cams aren't getting that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of technical challenges there that I'm sure there's ways to do it. I just haven't done it. So for a while, I was planning on doing kind of a Patreon where a lot of the shows would be behind a bit of a paywall. But at a certain point, I just realized, man, I only have so much energy project-wise, and I'm kind of at the end of my road because I'm running an enormous show.
You're doing a lot.
I'm doing the audio and video. I also do a wrestling history podcast. So,
and a podcast on top of it, of course.
Yeah,
I know. Well, listen, hey, everybody, listen. We all gotta have the podcast on top of the other shit.
Yeah. Well, what else is a guy to do in the 2023? So now what I've been doing is I all the vault stuff that I was planning on putting behind a paywall, I just started rolling them out on YouTube as a lover of cheesy horror type exploitation. The double feature of Doom, and try to roll it out as a double feature, like it's
it works perfectly for the brand, man.
So that's kind of
you. And this is my video coach coming out. Are you taking the most amazing parts, like minutes or whatever of the matches, and throwing it up on Shorts and TikTok and stuff?
I need to do that.
You fucking do it, dude.
The next frontier,
dude. That would kill. I'm sorry. I've seen bits and pieces, and I'm like, it's amazing. It's the amount of work you're putting into this is insane. But like in bite-sized pieces with the most viral bits, like oh my god, it'd be ridiculous.
Like I do need to explore that one, because I do that kind of thing on Insta and Twitter. Like I'm very active on Twitter. So that always gets good traction.
So you're already putting up bits of it. So just I'm gonna give you a tip here. Ready? Loomly, Loomly. You can literally hook every single social media platform to one, and caption at one time, and hit one button. It's on all platforms at once.
Yeah, that sounds like poor work ethic.
It sounds like efficiency to me, sir. Hey, listen. I got nothing. That's fair. So, you're putting together so much stuff for these shows. Like, talk me through organizing something of this level. Like, there's booking talent, there's marketing. Like, what is your, start to finish? What does your process look like on stuff?
Usually, because I run shows every 6 weeks. I don't make it monthly. I feel just a little extra breathing room just makes it a little more special. Because even when you're bringing in like crazy stars every single time, it's sometimes you can get a little bit of fatigued on that as far as audiences. So that little extra room, I feel like, does benefit it quite a bit. Yeah. So before a show is even on, like, for example, the show that will be happening this weekend, I already have August fully booked, fully planned, a poster ready to unveil, talent to announce, because, especially for those of us with film backgrounds, pre-production is everything. So I am a big proponent of, yeah. Plus, if you want the stars you want, you have to ask months ahead of time. This isn't something we're like, hey, what are you doing? And
especially if you're booking international travel, my God.
Yeah, because you have to jump on, because you'll talk to, like the agent for a Japanese star, and they say, cool, they can be in during this weekend because then they can get these other bookings and make the trip worthwhile. You'll just have to coordinate this with these people. Fine. But, a lot of the bigger names wrestling, I mean, they're very popular.
Yeah.
The nice thing with running Fridays, for the most part, is wrestling tends to be the bigger wrestling night worldwide. So I usually have a bit more wiggle room for who I get. So, I usually try to get people booked 6, 7, 8 weeks out so that, I have the whole thing ready to go. I can build around that.
Make it easy for them.
Yeah. And then by the time I get the payout for the show in front of me, well, I have all the funds to buy the flights.
I'm sure that's huge. That's huge. Like, if it's worth it. Yeah,
because then you have the flights. Yeah, you get the flights at the cheapest, price you possibly can.
Yeah.
You get the hotels, you get everything, so that when you bring up your Excel spreadsheet budget, you have everything ready to go. So you can look at it divided by the ticket price and go, cool, I need to sell this many tickets to break even.
Yeah.
So, but you typically, by the time a poster even appears on social media, I already have a budget down to the dollar. I have graphics ready to go. I have the entire thing booked because I just, I'm a detail-oriented person.
Yeah.
That's why I was a, fairly decent, first assistant director on a lot of
100%.
Because I'm like,
no, but like there's a reason it's been going for 10 years. That's the reason, man. Like, this doesn't happen by accident. This is hard shit to do. And the fact that you're like, if you weren't detail oriented, this wouldn't have gone 10 years.
Oh goodness, no. Same thing with marketing. I came from, I ran an open mic that took a while to build up, and I'd seen comedy shows rise and fall and clash and implode and explode. And I always keep a very close eye on things because we all know how art is a very fragile thing. And it doesn't matter how successful it is. It can all go away very quickly off of one or two bad throws.
Yeah.
So, like when I did my very first show, one of the things that made me comfortable doing it was my friend Matt Oren at his bar El Chorrito. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was a magical place. He introduced me to the Dos Equis / Tecate rep, who I pitched it as something they could sponsor. They were in. They bought $500 worth of tickets to do as a giveaway. I put their name on everything, and that launched the product. And it was, something initially, I thought this was going to be just a silly goose thing we do once.
And you got some money.
And then, the first one, it drew like 100. It didn't even draw 100 people. It was.
Yeah, but like, listen, how many people came to the first show?
Like, I want to say it was like 90.
No.
Yeah, it was like 90 people. And
I did and listen, this is where you're entertainment and I am education. It's vastly different audiences, but like I did 5 keys to successful video marketing back in 2018, and I was ecstatic when 10 people showed up out of the 25 that said they would.
Yeah, at a certain point, I started for a while there was a comedy place, mostly an improv place in the ballpark area called Voodoo. And for quite a while, I would teach marketing classes to comedy showrunners.
100%.
Because that's something that so many people in live entertainment don't pay any attention to.
Yeah.
That you can be like, they're just like, whoa, we're having fun, we're partying, we're making art, we're going to live forever in our party plans, we're manic, yay, somebody give us our meds. But if nobody's showing up to watch it, it's if a tree falls in the woods proposal. Because if it doesn't matter how cool art is, if it's not financially viable, it goes away. A venue has no time for the coolest show in the world that nobody shows up to.
Correct. Just give me a sec. I'm gonna say goodnight to my kids.
Getting back in, and 3, 2, 1. And that's the thing with marketing is that that's right. I did that.
I love it. I'm leaving in the cutting back in. That's great. But yes, keep going.
But yeah. But it's like we're saying with marketing, it's like, ultimately people don't understand that artists, our job isn't to blow minds. I mean, it's cool if we do,
right.
But ultimately we're eating up enough time for the audience to drink beer, eat food, buy the extra large popcorn.
Yeah.
We're essentially just keeping people from leaving the place where they're spending money that doesn't necessarily us.
So I mean, it's similar to like social media. What's gonna keep you here the longest with your attention?
Hey there, fellow creatives. Conversations with Creators dives deep into the minds of successful filmmakers, artists, musicians, and all-around awesome people. We are looking for some kick-ass sponsors to help us keep this show on the road. If you want to reach a tribe of dedicated listeners who are just as passionate about creating as you are, then look no further. Our audience is full of people who appreciate a good laugh and are always on the lookout for new ways to fuel their creativity. So, let's team up and create some magic together. We'll work with you to make sure that your brand is showcased in the best light possible. And who knows, maybe we'll even become lifelong friends. Just imagine. Years from now, we'll be reminiscing about the good old days when we first teamed up to take the world by storm. Send us an email at noah@snowmanfilms.net to say hey and get the ball rolling. Now back to the episode.
Yep, and that's something I learned very early on was I just kind of threw myself into learning marketing. It was just something where I became very good at it. I don't, innate, learned, born with it, who can say, but that became a big strength of mine was knowing how to market the show, how to find the demographic, how to get it in front of the right eyes with posters, with posts, boosted, whatever, and to ensure that like you get the people who promote it properly on their end, or by the virtue of their burgeoning stardom, they're that equal equivalent of popular and cost effective. Everybody's excited to see them.
Yeah.
Because if you book wrestlers and comedians, there's a saying I always like to go back to. Great talent that doesn't promote is worth less than good talent that does. Because again, ultimately it's all
that is shirts and posters and everything. That is 100% like, especially artists, by the way. Artists, like real artists, hate promoting, like just either are scared of it or can't stand it. Like they don't want to promote themselves. And I'm like, dude, you understand that, video's my thing, right? So you hit published. Your job is now half done. You got to now promote that to everywhere because that is how people, otherwise, like, what, your mom's going to see it? Like, congrats. Like, it's great to have the support, but like, you have to let people know what you're doing.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come mentality does not move tickets.
Other than Field of Dreams, that is complete bullshit.
It's another truism I like to bring up is you will never reach your goals on accident.
Yeah.
It's just that's the way it is. You if you say, cool, I want to make an amazing piece of art, whether it's theater or music or film or whatever you're doing, and it could be the best that there is, but if you don't know how to sell it, it doesn't really mean anything.
No.
And that's, like I said, that was something I really like to hammer home when I would do those seminars, is you can make the coolest comedy night in the world, but if no one's showing up, that the venue that paid you $100 to do it is now mad at you.
Yeah, right. The promoter's losing their shit. Or the venue, yeah, because you're the promoter.
Yeah, it's all just a matter of, like I said, it's like if you can't sell it, it's not sellable. If you can't sell it, it doesn't have value, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah. So on that note, what are maybe your top 3 marketing tips for live events, for stuff like this, that people that want to get into something like, not specifically, but like you taught marketing on this. Like, what are the big takeaways that you've learned over the last 10 years?
The important thing is mostly defining your audience and defining your product, because you have to, like, again, in film, you always talk about things like an elevator pitch, a log line. You have to be able to crystallize and explain your idea in 15 seconds or less. And you have to know what your product is. It cannot be nebulous. It cannot be like a big, it's like I hear that. So I remember hearing it so much, like, yeah, man, I want to do like a show where it's like a comedy show, but with videos and with this, and it's with this. It's like, well, what is it?
Right.
If you're trying to tell me it's 5 different things, you're not telling me what it is. You're telling me it's 5 different things, and you're not paying attention. So you have to have like a crystal clear idea of what your product is, and sometimes that takes time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are gonna, you do have to like kind of hew away at the rock to unveil the sculpture, and that's going to be the big step number 1.
Michelangelo over here. The David statue over here is Michelangelo, right? I'm right on that art history.
Yep, and it's like I said, you have to, and sometimes it is a matter of the show grows, the show evolves, and it becomes what it was meant to be.
And kind of going with that, right? Like listening to the audience and seeing where it's growing and embracing that.
Exactly. Everything grows, everything has to grow. It's like a shark. If it stops moving forward, it dies. And then once you have that clear definition of what you have, what you're creating, what you're selling, well then, who are your customers? You have to then figure out who is coming to your show. What is the demographic that will give you money? Who are these people? When you look at the audience, who are they? Where do they hang out? What kind of, where, and that's the thing, is like, then the next question is, how do you get the advertisement for your product in front of them?
Yeah.
So then
where are they hanging out specifically?
Because you have crystallized your concept. You have crystallized who you are attracting the most, and therefore what demographic is the most interested in your product. And then you move on to, where do I find them and convince them to sell? And that comes down to, like, when you're doing social media boosted ads, it's a matter of, hey, I am trying to, social media, it's great because you can be like, cool, here is the description of it. And then you go into the tags. And like for my show, it'd be like, oh, people who like WWE, AEW, punk rock. You can kind of figure out the Venn diagram of what these people are also into, and create a little more focused thing for what, a little more focused ad for what you're trying to do.
Has that been kind of the biggest success for you? Is Facebook targeted, or what has been like your biggest successes with that?
I get some good traction with that one. A lot of people who run big shows have been shocked at how little I spend on it.
Maybe because you know them so well.
Yeah, and it's also, once you have a certain amount of return customers, repeat customers, when you have a built-in audience that is now, oh, when is the next one? I'm buying tickets to it. Then, you have that first 200-300 that are just, you're going to sell those no matter what. And then it's moving those extra 2. And then it's a matter of, cool, well then, how do I get this in front of other people? Okay, well, then you go to online event calendars and get your show listed on there. You get it listed on Yelp events. You go, if you're on Nextdoor, you add it on Nextdoor. You find the appropriate regional Reddits and, put it on there. So it's spending an entire day making event calendars for various platforms, because hard work is free.
I was gonna say, if I didn't say before that Nick is not lazy, here you go.
and then it's also
hard working man. Holy shit.
Maybe too hard. Again, just falling apart at the seams these days. And then it's like, if you do printed posters, I did that for a very long time.
Where do you put? Okay, all right. So you got physical posters. Mm-hmm. What is your location? What's your spread in Denver?
And that's something you have to very much consider when you are making this happen, because again, you have to go, who are these people? Or what's my product? Who are these people? Yeah. What is the tie-in? And if you have sponsor businesses, cool, they'll probably put it up there. But if you don't, you have to kind of figure out, where will these be seen by the sort of people I want to come party with me? And how do I make sure, this is gonna stay up longer than an afternoon? Yeah. So case in point, I would always have, over the course of a couple of businesses, I had dispensary sponsors. So I would make sure their locations had, because I mean, weed and wrestling, name a better combination.
I would, if when I do come, I will be high, for sure. I'll be laughing hysterically. I'm sure you are too. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, so it'd be like, cool. Well, the dispensaries would have them inside.
Yeah, that's only makes sense.
And then I would also have one on the telephone or the light post right outside on the corner. That I would go places like, if I had, a friend's business, so I could put one up in the window. And then I would just think, where do people stand around a lot? Well, I would, for example, I would always put a poster in front of various like late night pizza places or late night restaurants, or Snooze up on Colorado Boulevard, where you'd have people standing around twiddling their thumbs for an hour so they can have really good pancakes. And I don't blame them. Those pancakes are phenomenal.
So good.
What if you're just standing there for half an hour? Your eye is going to draw to the beautifully designed, brightly colored thing that I've created to draw your eye. Yeah. And, hopefully it sticks in the back of somebody's mind.
This is a masterclass, sir. This is brilliant.
Yeah, because you have concepts like the rule of 3, the rule of 5, where just like if you see something 3 times, it goes in your short-term memory.
In your head, and you're like, oh shit, I should probably go to that.
So when you go down Federal, and for years you would see triple O posters at 50th, at 44th, at 38th, at 32nd, at Spear, at 26th, and
are you doing all this yourself, or do you have a team?
This was 100% me yet again. Where I would spend usually 2 days. I would print out usually 60 11 by 17 posters, and I would just get on my bike, have a nice little exercise day.
Yeah,
hang posters all over the city from Colorado Boulevard to
maybe takes you 2 hours.
Oh, way longer than that. It'd be because you're going like cross town. Because I could go like
whole day.
Like when I would do like sometimes like on Federal, I would go from 50th to Evans.
Oh my God.
You just figure out through trial and error because you would see places where the old
Arvada to Englewood.
Yeah, and you'd see where where you would see posters that are like,
you don't know if you're like, you guys are talking Colorado and I have no idea what that is. Go look up Arvada, Colorado. Do a Google Maps trip from Arvada, Colorado to Englewood, and you'll see the hard work that Nick freaking put in. My God.
But yeah, you look for places that have old show posters from other concerts and things stuck to the posts that are from like 6 weeks ago. You're like, well, clearly they're not, nobody's coming along and ripping this down.
Right.
So yourself, I would always bring a box cutter so I could slice it, unwrap it so it still looks nice, because if it's too ratty, somebody's going to come clean it up. Or, if like I would always put up.
No, but that's good news that it's still up, because then it's going to stay up.
Exactly. Yeah, I still see like ones from last year around because you just find a good spot.
There's going to be collector's items eventually, man.
Yeah, there you go. And I went to like if I would go to City O City, because they like everybody's putting posters there, so it's like it's like a mummy wrapped thing.
Yeah.
Box cutter, slice it all the way down, just pop it open, let the the air and sunlight touch the post for the first time.
And a homeless guy runs out.
Yeah, and then boom, boom, boom. Now there were 500 flyers for a million things. Now it is just me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just something where you just have to think.
Not illegal.
Where are the people who are going to want to come to the show hanging out, and where is that poster going to be up for the longest to catch the most incidental views?
It's the most basic stuff, and when put to use, it's basic works. That's just, it's, don't, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Like getting in front of eyes with, who your demographic is, where they hang out, and hit them on digital, hit them in physical, like you're doing everything, and that's why it's successful.
And then you just have to make sure you have a compelling advertisement, a poster that looks good, simple, bright colors, something that where if you look at it, you absorb all the information in about 5 seconds. That's something that always drives me nuts, is when somebody makes a poster for a show and it's a novel. Because again, it's like if you see a poster for a show and it doesn't catch you in 5 seconds, you're not reading the novel. Like it has to be just bright colored, looks cool. Like even if you don't know who these wrestlers are, it's like, oh my God, he looks like a fucking badass. It's weird. Like it's
What are the key elements that like goes into poster design for you?
Very, kind of keeping it simple. A lot of times you see this in comedy, you see this in wrestling, you see this in a lot of things. Put everyone on the poster syndrome, where you'll get the poster and everybody who's on the show is on the poster. It looks like
the end game, like
sense of competition or exactly. It's just one of those things where I see that so often. I have some graphic designer friends in wrestling, and we always send each other the posters we see and we're laughing at, and they look like the shit we were making 10 years ago. We learned our lesson and advanced. But yeah, it's like if you have more than a couple people on a poster, it's harder to really make a fun design.
Yeah. What's like the max you'll have at this point to be successful?
Like the one for the anniversary show is pretty busy because it's a super show.
Yeah, there's a lot of big names.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I have like 8 or 9 people on it. Yeah. So it was very hard to like make it.
Like for your average show.
I do 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Yeah, I feel like 1 big central and 2 on the side is like a good. Not, you got a couple faces, but it's not too busy.
Yeah, it just if you have the end game style poster, you are assuming that everyone is emotionally involved in all those characters. Right. The reason people are blown away by Endgame poster and Infinity War poster is because finally all these people we know have come together. It's going to be a crazy
It's been building for 15 years. Here we go. Yeah.
You're not trying to do the same thing when selling, $20 tickets to a wrestling or comedy thing. Because 90% of the people will know one person, if at all.
Yeah. So
if you clutter the frame, it's like the George Lucas syndrome. I keep making up syndromes where when he did his special editions of the original trilogy and then with the prequels, he would just pack the frame with so much shit, you don't even know what's happening.
Right.
It's like, am I supposed to care about this person or this over here? Why is that happening over there? What is this? And when it's usually local live entertainment, those photos are in 10 different resolutions. So you have to come up with, they look like absolute garbage.
Oh my God. And it's always like the headliner that has the pixelated photo, like it's kind of okay, but like the smaller faces are way more clear.
Yeah, where you'll look at some posters for comedy shows and it's like, did you take that one with an iPhone 4? Where did you even get it? And then the one...
There's no camera, not even iPhone.
Yeah, and then the one next to it is like high quality, but like the elbows chopped off or just the top of the head. Nobody understood how to frame a shot that was for a poster.
Oh, listen, at this point, because we're recording this on May 30th, 2023. Now the Photoshop AI content-aware fill is out, so there's literally no excuse to fill in the top of a fucking head.
Hey, one time I had some photos where I didn't have alternatives for the conversation I was trying to do. So I would literally make I'm some sort of like mortician trying to make sure they could have an open casket, or like a World War I plastic surgeon trying to rebuild somebody after. Like a plastic surgeon after somebody got their face eaten by a chimpanzee. And I would do things like, I had this one guy, it was a great photo of him holding out a belt like this, but it cut off one of like this much. So I took the other one and I mirrored it and I just warped it a little bit and blended, and it worked, but it was way more work than...
You're like 5 hours, 6 hours into this and you're like, this is dumb.
Yeah, so but again, it's just, I didn't want it to look like that.
Oh, dude, it's the worst.
And then, if, again, it's like, and then with marketing, if you have somebody who will draw, either because they are well known or they're visually striking or both, you make sure that person is better, because they're like, oh man, who's this crazy looking person?
Right.
And then again, you find out where if you're bringing in a star who's like from a very specific demographic, like a good friend of mine, one of my favorite wrestlers, Effie, is a gay wrestling superstar. And once you tap, that's the cool thing with pro wrestling, especially with a show like what I do, is a lot of people associate wrestling with kind of a rednecky kind of.
Yeah, that's it.
Sure. And over the last several years, it's been very much claimed by the cool kids.
Yeah.
Boy, are the old guard very grouchy about that. You're also the ones who think, man, if there's a gay wrestler, they're the bad guy, and we all laugh and boo at them, as opposed to the gay wrestler being the hero.
Right. How is there a gay WWE, WWE, or a major wrestler at this time, or is it coming soon?
I mean, there have
It's just queer LGBT.
There are in WWE, there are in AEW. They tend not to make them, like Sonya Deville is a queer woman.
Yeah.
There's been gay men in wrestling that that have been stars, and sometimes you can kind of see how it holds them back, and it's not the fans' reaction; it's the corporate reaction for how they're like, oh well. How we don't want to offend the homophobes. a trend in business to this fucking day.
I can totally see how, just like in all the classic sports, the wrestling world is the brown paper bagger, old school managers and guys that are just the least progressive people you'll ever meet.
Yeah, and now it's a very progressive thing where wrestling, by and large, is a progressive art form.
That's awesome.
There are all women shows. There are multiple trans stars. Minorities are no longer having to be stereotypes for the amusement of the white ticket buyer.
Well, I mean, listen, I absolutely adore the movie Wrestling with My Family. That was so good. I mean,
historically accurate as Braveheart, but it still was a fun movie. But then the
energy's there.
Yeah, no, it's the thought that counts. Yeah. And now you'll have shows.
Of course, it's not all true. God damn it.
But yeah, it's like I said, I was talking about my friend Effie, who, he comes out wearing a pink leather jacket with spikes and fishnets, and he comes out to Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and then he comes out and absolutely beats the crap out of people. Just he's not
annihilates.
Yeah, he's just out there. He's out there to bleed and cause bleeding. And he does a show called they're trying so hard not to just burst out laughing. And so when they shot that, they eventually did post it. It was heavily edited with just the soundtrack cut out of it.
Nah.
Some rock and roll music behind it. Because otherwise, if they presented it as is, would not have worked for what they were trying to accomplish.
I'm assuming the wrestlers are constantly cracking up with
a lot of them do, and a lot of them, because I mean, as you can imagine, they are very focused on what they're doing.
Yeah,
there's a lot. It's
super physical. Yeah.
So it's like they have to be very focused, but everyone is told
they don't break through.
They hear something out of just the corner of their ear, and I've almost lost it while mid move,
which I'm sure the crowd just absolutely loves.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like breaking on SNL. It's the best.
Yeah, it's exactly.
All right, so switching gears a little bit here, outside of the wrestling promotion career and all the thing that you've done, what's your thing? What's the hobby that you love that kind of makes you relax, takes you out of it? What's your thing?
I mean, nothing I do everything with such 110% energy. It's for me, what I do to relax is I work. So it's oh, well, I need to take a break. I made a poster. I edited a video. I'm color correcting that. I'm making sure the commentary track mix sounds good. You know what? I've been working too hard on this. You know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to open up all the newspaper archives that I have subscriptions to so I can get back to researching this famous wrestler from 1905 who for some reason, there's so many wrestlers from the 1800s and early 1900s where they're so obscure. If you Google them, I somehow am the preeminent expert on these people. So I will.
Hence the podcast.
So that's why I have a history podcast.
There you go. So no, but that's your passion. That's truly, that's why you have energy for everything, is because it's your passion, and that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, a friend of mine said if you didn't have the work, you would find the work.
Yeah.
It's if some people are just project people. Some people we're just born to just do a thing to an insane level where most people would be like, what
do you think this is?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a project to keep me creative and making stuff every week, and it's working beautifully.
Yeah, and that's kind of like with me with my podcast, where I go through the New York Times archives, I go through newspaper at the Library of Congress, I have all these resources, and I solved a murder from the year 1899. That's a thing I somehow did. Where
wait, really?
I did. Yes, I was researching this pro wrestler, Theobald Bauer, who was a French wrestler who came to the United States. And him and this guy, Dr. Miller, were going from San Francisco to DC doing the same match at every turn. And they were just faking it so obviously that newspapers were writing like front page articles like, "Do not bet on pro wrestling, you morons." These like Theo Bauer and Miller, they were just completely faking it. They're giving sports a bad name. What are you doing if you're putting money down on these matches? And I was digging deep into this guy Bauer, and like most foreign names in the late 1800s, you have to come up with every misspelling. So it'd be Theo Bauer, Theo Bin Bauer, Theodore, with like an English name Bauer. So Theobald Bauer in the late 1800s, I found an article about, because he eventually became very rich, and he bought a huge amount of real estate in what is now the Tenderloin district of San Francisco. Yeah. So it was the red light district. So he was, he owned all these buildings where, pimps and bars and all, and prostitution and gambling, all these things took place. And he's the one who paid off the cops. And there was a story I found where he showed up to the police station drunk because his friend got into a fist fight with a blacksmith named like D. Smith. And then he showed up drunk and just started punching cops until they like released his friend, which is an insane way to go about things.
Only in the 1800s.
Yeah, and then about a year later, I found another article about a blacksmith with like named like Dave Smith, who was found shot in the head next to a woman who was also shot. And as he was dying, he said he was murdered by wrestling champion Theobald Bauer. And it was only they just dismissed that as insanity. He wasn't like arrested or even questioned about it. They're like, oh, he must have just seen some wrestling and that's what he's thinking about while his brain swells up and kills him. But because I found the two stories with different spellings of his name, I solved the murder of a blacksmith at the hands of a pro wrestler.
Wow.
So that's what I do for fun.
Hey, I mean, listen, there's a TV show there for sure.
Oh no, that was something I've actually pitched, which is almost a Ken Burns-esque at the pioneer era of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
As something I say on my podcast, the history of wrestling is the history of America and vice versa, because
100%.
Look at how wrestling expanded westward after the Civil War, how it blew up in the army camps and all these wrestling styles mixed together. And then the circuses followed the army in westward expansion on the railroads. And that's how the wrestling became pro wrestling as we know it, carnivals. So yeah, when you look at wrestling history in the 1800s and early 1900s, wrestling history is just as valid a portal into the American experience as anything else.
I had no idea. I mean, I guess it makes sense that it goes back that far, but like you have no, I mean, just, was it national? I mean, I'm trying to think for like federation wise, like what level, was it all local at that point? Was there anything that was?
Well, in the 1800s, it was primarily the carnival circuit. Like P.T. Barnum was one of the first ones to really do that because his museum was right next to Henry Hill's, which was a boxing and wrestling bar in Manhattan. And he liked wrestling. So he was like, we take this on the road. So part of the circus, the carnival, would be the two costumed wrestlers doing a arranged choreographed match. But then they would bring out in Carney, what they would call the shooter, the hooker, the ripper, the person who could wrestle for real. And then it would be like, if any man in this audience can last 10 minutes with the amazing bongo, you will get this, you can get $20 or whatever we're putting out there. And then the fans would be able to take their shot at the amazing, guy. And then he would, hand them their asses and look even stronger. And then, but then
we got our dark, gritty sequel to Greatest Showman here.
Oh yeah, because and then if like for some reason the local townie was very tough, they would have little tricks, like they had some ammonia rubbed onto a part of the mat, and then so you would know to rub his hand there and rub it in the guy's eyes to blind him, and then hook him into a hold.
Yeah.
Or he would know there would be a dead spot in the mat where there'd be no board under it. So we knew to like push the guy into that position so he'd roll his ankle and be able to be thrown a lot easier. And then you'd do the double down where you'd have somebody from the carnival go to the next town 4 days early. So he just is part of the crowd going, I think I can wrestle that tough guy. He goes up and everybody gambles on, on that. And then they clean up on the gambling side of things. But then it's pretty much a draw. And then they go, well, the champion wrestler with the carnival says, I've wrestled a bunch today, so I would beat this man in a long match, but I'm tired. But if everybody comes back again tomorrow and it's another $1, you can see us wrestle to a finish.
Oh my God.
Double crosses to where famous wrestlers, very good wrestlers, would go to the carnival wearing a pair of overalls and a farmer's hat and claim, like, I'm just a simple farmer, but I think I could do this wrestling thing, $25 if I win. Oh my. And then they go up and destroy the carnival wrestler. So you would have all these multi-levels of carnival swindles that eventually turned into pro wrestling as we know it, because it was all about gambling.
Yeah. Everything was a show and everything was, dude, I see you're the narrator and this is drunk history, but with wrestling.
It very well could be. Yeah, because it really was all about the gambling. So that's where the money came from up until
it all comes back to money. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. And it wasn't until after the Black Sox scandal, the infamous baseball World Series throwing scandal, that there was a big crackdown on faking sports for gambling. And that's when wrestling started transitioning into more entertainment driven, because then you had to sell tickets because you couldn't gamble on it because it was too legally risky.
When did that happen?
That was I'd have to look that one up. It was the early 20s.
Yeah.
It was a situation.
For a long time, it was all about gambling, and then it turned into selling tickets.
Yeah, it's like you'd always try to make money off the gates, but primarily it was about swindling everybody with the gambling. There was like to tell it as quick as possible, one of my favorite stories on Earth. And like, this could be a movie. This is just a cinematic heist.
I would buy tickets to any of these.
Yeah, Frank Gotch, who was the greatest wrestler America probably ever produced, an Iowa boy. And he was gaining a lot of traction. He was winning minor titles. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, he just disappeared because he went to Alaska during the Klondike Gold Rush and was there under the name Frank Kennedy. And he started being like, oh, well, you guys are wrestling in the mining camp. Well, I can wrestle a little. And then for months, he was in this mining camp, panning for gold, working somebody's claim, and then wrestling everybody at night. So everybody's like, oh, Frank Kennedy's the toughest guy in the entire mining camp. What a guy. And this becomes insane when you think about how dangerous it was to go to the Klondike for a gold rush in the early 1900s. This is a time when, 25% of the people who went there didn't make it either there or back alive. I found a photo, it was called like Dead Horse Gulch, which is just a gulch that's still full of skeletons from the horses that like tumbled off.
Which I'm assuming the riders are there with them.
Yeah, I would assume. It's kind of hard to go down and check, so it's just kind of, but then the big wrestling company came through, and the champion wrestler, after doing the demonstration, is like, I'll wrestle any man in this camp. And if they can last 10 minutes with me, they get the $20. And everyone's like, oh man, you got to get Frank Kennedy over here. So Gotch as Kennedy goes up and they wrestle for the time limit. And the champion wrestler goes, oh, well, this guy is one of the toughest men I've ever faced. But I did a lot of demonstrations today. But if everyone comes back tomorrow and pays another $1, I will wrestle this man to a finish. So all the miners come back, they pay an extra ticket, and now they know that their man, this guy, Frank Kennedy, who has been beating all of their butts in wrestling matches and been almost beat the champion the night before, is going to win. So they bet their piles of gold that they've been digging out of the earth, millions of dollars in early 1900s money. This is not like lined up for inflation. This is millions of dollars were bet on Frank Gotch.
Ridiculous amounts of money.
And then they put on the epic match, the battle of all battles. But in the end, the champion pins Gotch 1, 2, 3. Everybody bet their money on Gotch. It was a long con of epic proportions. Then the next day, the wrestling company and Frank Gotch, as no longer being Frank Kennedy, loaded up a fortune and headed back to the mainland United States, where he bought an enormous amount of farmland in Iowa. And that's one of those things that really punctuates Gotch's career. He was so rich from this that he didn't really need to do anything. So his wrestling career was just out of pure love of wrestling, because he cleaned up on this giant swindle in the Klondike, and he was set for life.
I mean, that's tens of millions now.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a fortune.
Yeah. Wow, that's an insane story.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that could be an Ocean's 11.
100%. The crew, the whole thing, the build up. Yeah, and I feel like it's like you're really going for his side, and then it is revealed at the end that he's he's throwing it and stuff. Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so cinematic.
Ocean's 11.
Yeah, it's just so cinematic, and it's based. Yeah, it's very film noir with you can't trust anyone, everybody's screwing everyone over. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, and like I said, there's so many stories like that of people where it's just like everybody's plotting against everybody else. It's almost like it almost can be like a mob movie where all these organizations are plotting against each other, trying to outdo one another. It's
it makes so much sense for like the origins of it, because now the elevated characters and like the managers and the boss characters in WWE is kind of the similar vibe to that, where there's double crosses happening. There's so much. It's all based in history, which I understand why it's so successful, because it's all based in kind of what the lore was.
Yeah, and that's just wrestling has been fantastic because it understands how to manufacture drama.
Yeah,
as Andy Kaufman put it, there is no drama like wrestling.
Yeah.
Because it can be brother against brother, it can be employee against boss, it can be working man against the elitists, it can be friends betraying friends, friends becoming enemies, enemies becoming friends, so on and so forth, world without end.
If you don't go and see one of Nick's goddamn shows at this point, so good, man. I love it. I love your passion for it. I love just like everything, man. It's awesome.
Well, I appreciate it. It's nice. It's always nice when you're able to take mental illness and point it in the right direction.
Put it on a shirt. Yeah. Well, I want to wrap it up by kind of rolling out the red carpet for you. And I know that you already talked about it, but tell the people what you got going on in your life, because this is going to come out. We're recording this on a Tuesday. This will be out on, when's the show? Friday and Saturday. So this will be out. I will make a special exception, put this show out on Thursday. Not that it's going to do you a ton of good for our audience so far.
I want to help you feedback on me, and we all know it. So. Congratulations on your extra views. But yeah, for things for me. Yeah,
what do you got going on?
Yeah, for our 10-year anniversary show, we're at the Oriental Theater on 44th and Tennyson, both Friday and Saturday night. They are two distinct, different shows. We're not just doing repeats. I'm doing my favorite thing. I only announce a couple of matches, so everything else is just surprises. I like that you can just come there and you don't know what you're going to see, but you're going to love it. And ticketing information is at The Oriental Theater, theorientaltheater.com. Lucha Libre and Laughs, you can find us on all social media. Well, I guess except for TikTok, but soon. So type in Lucha Libre and Laughs. You'll find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And if you liked the history stories I was telling, the show is called Pro Wrestling History Nerds. I put out episodes every other week, mostly covering pro wrestling as it was from the Civil War to World War II.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I'm going to check out the podcast. I was completely enthralled with the story. I could see the visuals happening.
Yeah, there's an episode in there just called Carnival Wrestling, and I just gave you like the cliff notes of it. but it's such a deeper, and I had to do so much editing. I still think of it to this day because I'm fascinated. Like I probably, if I had that option as a kid, I would have ran away and joined the circus.
Yeah.
And I started like doing all my research, and I was just going down these rabbit holes where I realized I would have like 5 pages of notes about the way you would bring in the legitimate carnival games, and the sheriff would come and inspect everything. And then as soon as the sheriff was out of thing, you like put the new lid on it so the ring wouldn't go over the prize.
Yeah.
This doesn't have anything to do with wrestling.
Doesn't make...
So just my love of all things carnival really bleeds through on this one.
I love it. But I mean, that's all you want to listen to from a show is somebody who's passionate about what they're talking about. That's when you get excited. You got me excited about wrestling history. I never thought I'd be excited about wrestling history. That's incredible.
Yep, it is a weird hook to get caught on, but it's baited very well.
Well, with that, I think we'll end it. Nick, thank you so much for your time, and man, you got some awesome stuff going on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for the conversation, and I look forward to listening to it and wondering what the hell it is I'm even talking about.
Me too. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.